I gave my daughter $95,000 to buy her dream home. I wired every dollar myself, from an account I had been building for 30 years. And on the day she signed the papers, I stood in the parking lot of that title company, waiting for her to call me in. She never did. When I finally walked through the front door, the ink was already dry, and my name was nowhere on that deed. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how it really started. My name is Walter. I am 68 years old. I spent 31 years working as a civil engineer for the county of Maricopa, Arizona. I woke up at 5 every morning, packed my own lunch, drove a pickup truck that I kept for 11 years because it still ran fine, and I saved. Every month, I saved. Not because I was afraid of spending, but because I had a daughter named Claire, and I wanted her life to be easier than mine. Claire's mother passed when Claire was 14. Breast cancer caught too late. After that, it was just the two of us. I coached her soccer team on weekends. I helped her with her college applications at the kitchen table, both of us eating cereal at midnight. I drove 12 hours to move her into her first apartment in Nashville when she got her first real job. I did not complain once. Not once. Because that is what a father does. When Claire was 31, she married a man named Derek. He was a sales manager at a medical device company, drove a leased BMW, always had a firm handshake and a big smile, and said the right things at the right times. I told myself I liked him. I told myself that he made my daughter happy, and that was enough. The trouble was, Derek had expensive taste and modest discipline. Within 2 years of the wedding, Claire called me and told me they were renting a townhouse that was too small, too loud, and in a neighborhood she did not feel safe in. She wanted a real home, a yard, a place to raise a family. Derek, she said, was working on it. They just needed a little more time. 6 months later, she called again. They had found the house. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a quiet cul-de-sac in Scottsdale, walking distance from a good school. The asking price was $410,000. They had saved $15,000 for a down payment. The bank wanted 20%, $82,000. They were short. She did not ask me directly at first. She just described the house. She described the yard, the big kitchen window, the way the afternoon light came through it. She told me Derek's mother had already offered $10,000. Then, she went quiet. I asked her how much she needed. She said, "Dad, I don't want to put you in a hard spot." I said, "Claire, how much?" She said they were $57,000 short of the full down payment, and they also needed about $8,000 for closing costs, inspections, moving expenses. $65,000 total would cover everything, she said. I told her to give me a few days. I did not need a few days. I knew what I was going to do. I just wanted to think clearly, not emotionally. That is something I learned from engineering when a decision feels urgent. Slow down. Check your measurements twice. I checked them. The money was there. I had $340,000 in savings. I had my pension. I had my house paid off. I was fine. And Claire was my daughter. My only child. The only family I had left. I called her back on a Thursday evening and told her I would give her $95,000. The extra $30,000 was a cushion. I wanted her to have breathing room after the move, money for furniture, repairs, anything that came up. I told her it was a gift, not a loan. I did not want her to feel indebted to me for the rest of her life. She cried. I am not ashamed to say I cried a little too. She said, "Dad, you have no idea what this means to us." She said Derek was going to call me that weekend to thank me personally. Derek did not call that weekend. He texted. A single text that said, "Walter, Claire told me. That is incredibly generous. We won't forget it." Then a thumbs up emoji. I told myself that was fine. People communicate differently. Derek was busy. What mattered was the house. I wired the $95,000 the following Monday. I have the transfer receipt still. I printed it and put it in a folder with the date written on the tab. The closing was set for 6 weeks later, on a Tuesday afternoon in March. Claire invited me. She sent me the address of the title company and the time, 2 o'clock. She said, "Dad, you should be there. You made this happen." I wore my good shirt, the blue one I usually save for church. I drove 40 minutes from my house to Scottsdale, found the building, parked, and sat in the lobby waiting for Claire and Derek to arrive. They were late. About 20 minutes. When they came through the glass door, Claire was on her phone, and Derek was talking to someone beside her, a man I did not recognize, in a suit. They both walked straight to the front desk without looking my direction. I stood up. I waved. Claire glanced over and gave me a quick smile, the kind of smile you give to someone you'll get to in a moment. Then she turned back to the desk. I sat back down. The closing took about 45 minutes. I know this because I watched the clock on the wall. Nobody came to get me. At one point, a receptionist asked if I was being helped, and I said I was with the Harmon party, that is Derek's last name. Claire took it when they married, and she nodded and went back to her desk. When they came out, Claire was holding a set of keys, and Derek had his hand on her back, and they were both smiling. The man in the suit shook Derek's hand. Then Claire saw me, and something in her face changed. Not guilt, exactly. More like inconvenience. She walked over and hugged me. She said, "Dad, I'm so glad you came." I hugged her back and I said, "Congratulations." I meant it. I was happy for her. Whatever else I was feeling, I pushed down, because I have had practice at that. Derek shook my hand. He said, "Walter, big day." That was it. Big day. We stood in the parking lot for a few minutes. I asked if I could see the house. Claire said they had a lot to coordinate that afternoon. Moving boxes, utilities, the cable company was coming, she said. We would do a proper housewarming dinner once they were settled. She said, "We'll call you, Dad. This weekend, maybe." They did not call that weekend. I waited. I am a patient man. I know young couples are busy. I know settling into a new home takes time. I gave them 2 weeks before I called. Claire answered and sounded rushed. She said the house was great. They were still unpacking. Things were hectic at work. She said the housewarming dinner was going to happen, just not yet. She'd let me know. Another 2 weeks passed. I drove by the house once, just to see it. I did not stop. The lights were on inside, and there was a new welcome mat on the front porch and flower boxes in the window. It looked like a home. It looked like the photograph she had sent me before closing. I called again. This time Derek answered. He said Claire was in the bath. He said they were fine. House was great. He'd have her call me back. She did not call back that night. She called the next morning briefly, and we talked for maybe 8 minutes about nothing in particular. I do not know exactly when I started to feel it. The feeling is hard to describe. It is not anger, not at first. It is more like a slow realization that something you believed about your life might not be true. That the story you have been telling yourself about sacrifice and family, and the ways love gets returned, might have some errors in it that you missed. I started going through my files one evening in April. I do this sometimes when I cannot sleep. I organize papers, it calms me down. I found the folder with the wire transfer receipt. I looked at it for a while. $95,000. Sent on a Monday morning in February. I thought about what I had in that account before I sent it. I thought about how long it had taken to accumulate. Then a thought came to me that I had been avoiding. I had never seen the deed to Claire's house. She had never sent me a copy. I had not asked for one, it had not seemed important, because the house was my daughter's and I trusted her, but now the thought was there, and it would not leave. I have a friend named Raymond who spent 20 years as a county assessor before he retired. I called him the next morning. I gave him the address. I asked him if he could look up the ownership record on the public database. He called me back in 20 minutes. "Walter," he said, "the deed lists 2 owners, Claire Elizabeth Harmon and Derek James Harmon." I already knew what he was going to say next, but I let him say it. Your name's not on it," he said. I thanked him. I hung up. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time. The coffee in my mug went cold. Outside the window, a bird was doing something in the bird bath, and the morning light was coming across the yard the way it does in April in Arizona, long and gold and very quiet. I thought about the $95,000. I thought about the text from Derek that is incredibly generous. We won't forget it. I thought about standing in that lobby in my blue shirt while my daughter signed papers 45 feet away. I thought about Claire's mother. I thought about what she would say if she were sitting across from me right now. I think she would say, "Walter, you already know what you have to do. Stop waiting for someone to tell you." I picked up my phone. I called my attorney. His name is Gerald. and I have known him for 22 years. He handles my estate documents, my will, everything. I told him what happened. I told him the full story from the beginning. He listened without interrupting, which is one of the things I respect about him. When I was done, he said, "Walter, that $95,000 was a gift, so legally they were not required to put you on the deed. But what this tells you about the people involved, that part's on you to decide what to do with." I told him I had already decided. I told Gerald to pull up my will. I had 2 significant assets outside of my retirement accounts, my paid-off house in Mesa, which appraised at $480,000, and a brokerage account worth approximately $210,000. Claire was the sole beneficiary of both. I told Gerald to revise the will. The house would go to the Carpenters Union Scholarship Fund I had contributed to for years. The brokerage account would be split between 2 charities, a children's hospital in Phoenix and a veterans organization I had supported since I was in my 30s. Gerald asked if I was sure. I said I was sure. Then I told him one more thing. Every month I had been transferring $1,200 to Claire's account. I had been doing this for 4 years since before the wedding, when she was between jobs and needed help with rent. She had never been between jobs again, but the transfers had continued. I had continued them because I told myself she was building savings, getting stable, and one day when she was truly secure, I would taper it off. I had never tapered it off. I called my bank that afternoon and canceled the automatic transfer. I want to be honest about how I felt. I did not feel powerful. I did not feel vindicated. I felt tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. I felt the specific exhaustion of a man who has spent 40 years being useful to people he loved and has just understood all at once that usefulness and love are not the same thing. I did not call Claire. I did not send a message. I went about my days. I had coffee in the morning. I walked 2 miles in the evening. I called Raymond once to go fishing. I read a book I had been putting off for 3 years. I slept, not well at first, and then better. 8 days after I canceled the transfer, my phone rang at 7:40 in the morning. It was Claire. I let it go to voicemail. She left a message asking if everything was okay with the account. She said her transfer had not come through and her bank was showing nothing pending. I did not call back. She called 3 more times that day. I let them go. That night she texted, "Dad, please call me. Something's wrong with the account. Are you okay?" The next morning Derek called. I have to give him credit, he waited 9 days before he picked up the phone himself, and when he did, his voice had none of the casual confidence it usually carried. He sounded careful, measured. He said, "Walter, we just want to make sure you're all right. Claire is worried." He said, "I'm fine." "Derek," he said, "Oh, good, good. We just noticed the monthly transfer didn't happen." I said, "I know." I stopped it. Silence. He said, "Oh, then, can I ask why?" I said, "I think you can probably figure it out." More silence. Then he said, "Walter, if this is about the house, Claire and I have been meaning to talk to you about that. We were going to have you over. We just wanted to get settled first. It's been a busy few months." I said, "Derek, I don't need an explanation. I made a decision about my own finances. That's all." He said he understood, and he hoped we could all sit down together soon. His voice had gone from careful to thin. I told him I hoped so too. I said goodbye, and I hung up. Claire called 40 minutes later. She was crying before she finished saying my name. She said she knew how it looked. She said Derek had told her to wait until they were settled to bring me over for dinner, that Derek had handled the paperwork, and she hadn't thought to look at whose name was on the deed. She had just trusted that it was handled. She said she had never meant to shut me out. She said I was her father, and she loved me. I listened to all of it. I did not say much. When she finished, I said, "Claire, I believe you love me. I also know that a man can love someone and still not see them clearly. I am not angry at you, but I have spent a long time doing things for you that you have stopped noticing. That is not entirely your fault. It is partly mine, for making it so easy." She asked what that meant. I said it meant I was going to spend some time focusing on myself for a while. I said the monthly transfers were done. I said I had made some changes to my estate plans, and she was welcome to consult Gerald's office if she wanted details, but that she should not count on those assets the way she may have been counting on them. She went quiet. Then she said, "Dad, did you cut me out of the will?" I said, "I reorganized it. You were the only person in it before. That was an error in judgment on my part." She made a sound I had not heard from her since she was a teenager, a kind of fractured exhale, like something giving way. She said this was not fair. She said Derek was the one who handled things and she trusted him. And she never thought. She kept saying she never thought. Never thought I'd feel left out. Never thought the deed would matter to me. Never thought the monthly money would stop. I sat with that for a moment. The word that kept returning to me was thought. All those things she had never thought. I said, "That's the part I'd like you to spend some time on, Claire. Not the will. That. The not thinking." We talked for another few minutes. Nothing was resolved. Nothing is resolved yet. But something shifted, and I could hear that she felt it too, a change in pressure, like weather turning. In the weeks that followed, Derek stopped calling. Claire called twice more, both times shorter, more careful. The third-degree urgency had faded. She wasn't calling about the money anymore. The last time we spoke, she asked how I was doing, how my knee was, whether I had seen Raymond lately. It was a small conversation, quiet and a little awkward, but it was about me for the first time in a long time. I have thought a great deal about what it means to give. I was raised to believe that a father gives without keeping score, and I still believe that to a point. But I have learned, at 68 years old, that there is a difference between giving and disappearing. Every dollar I sent, every sacrifice I made, I told myself it was love, and it was. But it was also a kind of hiding. It was easier to write a check than to say, "I need you to see me. I need to matter to you not because I am useful but because I am your father and I will not always be here." The deed to that house has 2 names on it. Mine is not one of them. I have made my peace with that. The $95,000 is gone and I do not want it back. It bought my daughter a home, and whatever else has happened, I am glad she has that. What I want back is simpler and harder than money. I want to sit in that kitchen with the big window she described, the one where the afternoon light comes through, and I want to be there not because I paid for the window, but because I am her father, and she wants me there. I don't know yet if we get there. I hope we do. I am a patient man, and I still have some patience left. But I am done making myself invisible in order to be included. I have earned the right to take up space. And if the people in my life cannot see me until I stop writing checks, then at least now they can see me. That is not nothing. At 68, after everything, that is not nothing at all.